A new Australian film is releasing in cinemas on the 9th of November, a film called Damage. And it's my great pleasure to be speaking to the writer-director of Damage, Madeleine Blackwell. Madeleine, welcome to Movie Metropolis.
Thanks, Peter. Great to be here.
Good to talk to you. And this is such an intriguing film about an Iraqi taxi driver and his elderly female passenger. And it was interesting to read about the improvisation that went into it. Tell me about the background and story and the development of the film for you.
Okay, I come from a background of theatre, although I did graduate from afters, and I have worked in film. Mostly I come from a background in theatre, and it's a it's a much cozier process, theatre. So I think I brought those elements from theatre to the working with the actors here, and they were non-actors, like they hadn't actually performed before. So I brought a lot of improvisation, and I actually allowed the improvisations to guide me. Even though I did come to the project with a finished script, I soon let go of the ending, and I allowed them to really influence the writing process. And in fact, Ali Al Jenabi, he would always interpret the text I had written in his own way. And he brought a really authentic poetry to the way he actually speaks and describes things. So he would just throw my line away and bring his own, which had the same meaning, but a different intonation.
Ah, what an interesting process. And I gather Ali and your lead
Imelda
actress,
Bourke.
Imelda Bourke, yeah, they're not professional actors.
No, no, both newcomers to the screen. Imelda was 89 or 88, 89 when we started to shoot. And Imelda Bourke was a wonderful singer, a very talented singer here in Adelaide in the 50s and 60s. And she happens to be my mother.
Ah, how interesting. Would have been interesting directing her on set.
Well, she always had a very kind of really, it wasn't a mother daughter act. It was really I very much respect her sense of quality. You know, she was one of these people that could listen to music or read a novel, or she had very, very good taste in and she really had a great sense of analysis of the script. When I first gave it to her, she pinpointed the weak spots immediately. I don't know how she did it. She has no experience in it, but she said, you better fix up that bit, and that bit there is a bit weak. And she was absolutely right.
Well, the two of them work excellently together, I must say. Did you do some rehearsal with them beforehand before you started shooting?
Yes, yes, yes. We had a lot of interaction beforehand. And Ali came down to Adelaide for the very first time when it was still, just an experiment. There was a whole stage of this. This was just an experiment. I wanted to be really sure that it was going to work before we launched into it. So, yeah, we did have some time working in my mother's garage, sitting in her car, improvising, filming the improvisations, socializing together, being together. Yeah, talking.
Okay. Well, what a great process. Now, I like the title "Damage" because, of course, both of them are have characters that are damaged insofar as the Iraqi war situation background for Ali and Imelda, who is looking perhaps to have to move to a retirement home or something like that. So, um, uh, tell me about settling on that title "Damage" and that script development area.
Look, damage really comes from the very simple analysis that once damage has been inflicted on someone, it won't just go away. It's something that we do to each other. It's whether it's the looking at a global situation or an individual psychology, that we are sensitive beings, and that damage is very much something that we need to come to terms with. The fact that you cannot mistreat somebody and expect to get away with it. There are always long-term repercussions. So damage has been a title that is quite common. If you Google damage, there's quite a few films called Damage.
Hmm.
But I just couldn't find anything else that summed up what these two people have in common, and what the sort of overriding symbolic meaning in the film is. It's a bit of a metaphor, really, about bigger issues. And so, yeah, I settled on Damage.
Okay, no, that's fine. It works for me, but I'm always interested in process and how you make decisions.
I was for ages. I tried to find another title. I even made an announcement at one of our fundraising gigs, because we took a very long time to make the film because we'd stop and screen a bit of it and have fundraisers. And I even often offered it to my sort of public to try and help me think up another title, but nobody could. So Damage stayed with us right the way through.
Fair enough. No, that works really well. And it's shot in, of course, in Adelaide. And I'm intrigued by, as you said, it was shot over a longer period of time, but about locations and about working with your two actors in the different spots that they're located in.
Well, actually, I really didn't want the film to be set in any recognizable city. I just wanted to lift it above realism a certain way so that it is any city, it
Mm.
is the world. So I actually shot some of the road sequences in Sydney and in Melbourne. Some of the background shots of bigger highways and freeways. I mean, sometimes we went out in Adelaide late at night to shoot traffic and there wasn't any. So we had to go elsewhere. But no, yeah, it's set in a sort of a more suspended reality so that the audience who watch the film don't actually identify, oh, that's something that happened in this place or at that time. It's more a film of ideas where we look at what the relationship between them and the relationship between what happens inside the car and the world outside the car.
Yes.
But we did shoot it in Adelaide largely.
Right. No. I did actually see some Melbourne streets that I recognised, so I thought, how interesting. And the other overlaying aspect of this film, of course, is surveillance of the surveillance cameras of the surveillance during the Iraqi bombings and by the US and all that. So I found that a very interesting sort of subtext to the film as well.
Yeah, well, it's an internalized subtext, but it's also external. It happens in the outside world. And we see, well, there are themes about how human beings are framed and seen and viewed and so Ali is being framed in a certain way. You know, you think at the end, what happens in the end is it's very unresolved. I didn't want this to become a story with a beginning, middle, and end. I wanted it to leave. I wanted to leave the audience with that question and a sense of responsibility, asking, we've allowed people to be hunted down and to be incarcerated. It's about the treatment of refugees, but it's also about, well, I've used some of the WikiLeaks footage. It's about censorship and the way that wars are represented, the way that human beings are represented in the media, and how that can be manipulated in a way that will allow us to mistreat each other.
Uh-huh. Again, so interesting. Tell me, was there any particular inspiration behind the making of Damage insofar as films, filmmakers, or your background and so on?
Well, I do love Michael Haneke
Ah,
because he breaks that kind of fourth wall, we call it in the theatre. Of course, it's not a wall in film, but he always breaks that and he challenges the audience to recognize that a film is a film. It's not actually this sense of having to believe it. We suspending disbelief. Actually, we don't have to believe it. We can be conscious that there are certain rules and games that a film is, the 3-act structure and so forth. There are certain formats. I love the way Haneke plays with that.
Absolutely, I fully agree with you. Haneke is a great filmmaker, and how interesting. And it's so interesting to note. I'd seen a couple of other films where you had a male driver and a female passenger, which is so interesting. Like Driving Miss Daisy, of course, but also the French film Driving Madeleine.
And
Uh,
voila.
how appropriate.
I was a bit pissed off, I've got to say.
That's right. How dare they call that the character Madeline when
What timing? Trust me.
So I was just intrigued whether there were any other influences on your film, but I gather it
Well,
was
Abbas
oh,
Kiarostami, of course, again, um, A Taste of Cherry, that film, that extraordinary film, the way he finds a narrative that is completely, it's a fable. It's a metaphor for so much else about life and about politics, living, the country that he lives in, the situation. But it's a fabricated little fable, and I just adore that. It's so poetic. And in The Taste of Cherry, I guess it did. I mean, for a long time, I looked for the ending of this film. I had some really great colleagues who stuck with this problem because we allowed so much improvisation to come into it. We were really tied in knots in the edit room for some time, and we were editing while we were shooting the whole time. So the ending was very influenced by Haneke's A Taste of Cherry, where you pull back and you see the whole film crew sitting on the side of the hill or standing on the side of the hill. Yeah, the so in this film, in Damage, I really didn't want that ending to be resolved. I wanted those non-actors, those human beings, to be able to look into the camera that's looking at them, and be aware of it. That's
right.
that's the ending. Yeah.
Okay, no, fair enough. Now, it's always difficult to produce films in Australia. Obviously, financing is an issue and so on. And you've mentioned, I think, crowdfunding. So tell me about the actual production insofar as getting resources to be able to make the film.
So I started out. I went to a lot of producers with this project, and nobody took a bite. So I could not let go of it. I was totally committed to it. I could feel that film coming into existence before it came into existence. And I thought, I've just got to do something here. So I went to Creative Partnerships Australia, which is now, it's it's just changed its name. It's the Australian Cultural Fund, which was set up about 20 years ago by the Australian government to encourage private philanthropy. And so I launched 3 campaigns or 4 campaigns through the ACF, and I raised $100,000 before starting the shoot. And in a way, that was something that kept me going because I'd lit a bushfire and I had to put it out. So I was committed then. So, we ran out of money pretty quickly. We had to keep stopping production. We would raise funds, have chook raffles, all sorts of things. I put some of my own money into it. The hardest thing it was really hard to make this film, but the hardest thing was asking people for money. It was so hard. But as a result, I've got, around 200 people invested in the film. When I say invested, they donated. But thankfully, through the ACF, they are eligible for a tax deduction for the donations. So, that's how I started it out. I didn't actually get any money from any government sources at all.
Mm.
I made lots of applications, of course.
Yes. No, I understand. It's very difficult. Yeah, absolutely appreciate that. So well done on persevering and getting that financing and making the film. So well done. So I'm intrigued when I mean, you obviously showed scenes as you were making the film, but how did Ali and Imelda react when they saw themselves in the final version of the film?
Well, they weren't together when they saw the film for the first time. Ali saw it in Canberra at a screening of the National Film and Sound Archive.
Ah.
And I think Ali's a man of very few words, but he just went, and no, he really enjoyed it. And Imelda saw it, and she saw it at various stages through the cut. Actually, she followed the progress of the edit. She had opinions about it. I really enjoyed that process with her. She had macular degeneration, so she would watch the big screen really closely.
Ah.
And she just had such an instinct. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed sharing that with her. And of course, she saw it. It wasn't a finished version, actually, but we screened it at the Adelaide Film Festival, and she watched it there just 4 weeks before she passed away.
Oh, no, I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't
Yeah.
know that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, she passed away, but she had a wonderful life and a very beautiful death. We were all around her, and it was great. It was a wonderful thing to do with my mother in the last years of her life.
Mm.
She's a great performer. She said, I wish I had done this 40 years ago.
And she's now forever preserved on film, which is
Yes, she
fantastic,
is.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, how interesting. So I know the film is releasing in Australian cinemas on November 9th. We're talking about Damage, of course. Are you hoping to roll it out elsewhere as well, for example, overseas?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're hoping to roll it out in other cinemas in Australia, and I'm really interested to get it into the smaller regional towns. Um, and yeah, look, the distribution, Antidote are distributing it. And so, yeah, there are certain places that are just doing a bit of a wait and see before they take it on. Um, and yes, it's been in a few festivals overseas, but I wasn't really aware of the whole um, manner that works, actually. And once a film has been finished, you've only got a very small window to get it out there.
Uh-huh.
Um, so yeah, we'll see about that. It's a bit of a vague area for me. I'm not an expert with all of that at all.
Sure. No, I understand that process is always not easy either. So hope that goes well. So, Madeleine, just to conclude, I'm intrigued. Are you working on another film at the moment?
Well, we're really working on this because Sharon Cleary, Peter Thurmer, and I were the producers. And so it hasn't finished just because the film was finished. I'm still doing a lot of work on this, but I always have other projects that I want to do. And yeah, I've got a script that I've been working on for a really long time, and I can't wait to get a clear desk, to be able to clear my desk and get into that. It needs another draft.
Fair enough. Well, I wish you well on that, and Damage is certainly a fine film, and I recommend audiences go and see it when it's released November 9th. And we've been speaking to the writer director of Damage, Madeleine Blackwell. Madeleine, thank you so much for talking with me.
Thanks, Peter. Great to talk. Thanks.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.